Laura was a volunteer firefighter who woke on a summer morning in November 2019 to a sky she had never seen before. Lead gray, striated with orange, and a heat so immediate it felt like a hand on her chest. What followed for Laura and for an entire nation was a slow-motion unraveling. The Black Summer bushfires that burned from late 2019 into early 2020, consuming more than 18 million hectares, destroying thousands of homes, and leaving entire ecosystems stunned into silence. This is a documentary account of that season, the heat wave that baked the landscape, the lightning storms that birthed firestorms across New South Wales, Victoria, South Australia, Tasmania, and Queensland, the small coastal towns smothered in smoke, the tourists and residents cut off in Malakuta who waited for vessels of the Navy to ferry them out. It is a story of human courage, of volunteer brigades, firefighters from across the world, neighbors with hoses and tractors, but also of systemic collapse and a quieter, more insidious conspiracy. At the height of the fires, Australian cities recorded the worst air quality ever measured. Sydney woke under a tawny sky. People wore masks, schools shut, hospitals received surges of respiratory cases. Wildlife suffered unimaginable losses. Scientists estimated hundreds of millions to more than 1 billion native animals killed or displaced. Kangaroo Island and countless forests were scarred beyond recognition. Official tallies counted dozens of direct fatalities. Independent analyses pointed to hundreds of premature deaths linked to smoke inhalation. The immediate causes were simple and terrifying: record temperatures, prolonged drought, dry fuels, and sparks, some from lightning, some from fallen power lines, and a small share from deliberate ignitions. But the Royal Commission established in February 2020 gave the fuller picture. These fires were an outcome of decisions stretched over decades. It named a national failure to prepare, to mitigate, to coordinate. It placed responsibility not only at the edge of the flame, but in boardrooms and parliaments. Here is the conspiracy this season revealed, not a cloak and dagger plot, but a structural one. For years, powerful interests and a string of governments cast doubt on the severity of long-term climate trends while prioritizing short-term economic gain. Funding for hazard reduction and emergency services was fragmented between states. Responsibility was shuffled. Climate change science, clear, consistent, and increasingly urgent, was at times sidelined in policy debates. The result? A landscape primed to burn, emergency systems stretched thin, and public messaging muddled. Politicians and commentators quickly filled the air with competing narratives: arson everywhere, failures of land management, or simple bad luck. Many of those claims were later corrected. Data showed that while some fires were deliberately lit, the overwhelming drivers were extreme weather and fuel loads exacerbated by a warming climate. The Royal Commission and subsequent inquiries urged a different verdict. The season was a national failure of prevention, preparedness, and political courage. For Laura, the conspiracy was visceral. She remembered nights fighting back-to-back blazes while trains of trucks carried cut timber past councils that had debated hazard reduction budgets for years. She watched ministers speak about rebuilding while resisting changes to emissions policy. She watched television footage of a prime minister on holiday in December, a photograph later lampooned for symbolizing a government slow to respond to an unfolding reality. When the smoke finally thinned months later, the landscape looked like a ledger of loss. Communities tried to count what had been lost: homes, wildlife, livelihoods.